For some context, this happened at a sleepover that one of my classmates went to. We'll call her by her name, Skylar. Skylar, at the time, when she went to the sleepover, she was 17 years old and she went to one of her best friend's sleepover that they always had in the summertime. It was sometime in 2017, and Skylar was sleeping over with her best friend, Clarissa. Clarissa and her got along just fine, and they had no issues whatsoever. However, there was this one time that Skylar had an issue with Clarissa was her basement. Now, some people may think what's so bad about her basement. Well, this will be important later on. Clarissa, along with Skylar, liked to do things that others would not. I really don't understand why that's the case, but it has been something boggles in everyone's mind for a while. However, though, this was something that really messed Skylar up. When she and Clarissa decided to sleep over at Clarissa's house this year, which of course, almost every time they have sleepovers, in the summertime would be, for an example, at Skylar's, but she decided to sleep at Clarissa's place since she hadn't slept over there in quite some time due to schoolwork. But since it was the summer, this was a great opportunity for them to sleep over. When Skylar arrived in Clarissa's house, Clarissa was with her parents and they welcomed her in the house, which they were very good friends with Skylar. Skylar walked in and got her things together. It was going on pretty good. When they approached the house and walked inside, Clarissa basically showed where Skylar can sleep and etc. This was going to be a pretty interesting sleepover, Clarissa said, as it has been a while since Skylar had slept there. However, there was no issue with Clarissa sleeping over at Skylar's, but I think for some reason, since there wasn't any issue whatsoever at all. They decided to go in to the basement as they were playing hide and seek. However, when they were in the basement playing hide and seek, there was something that Skylar ended up hearing. She ended up hearing what sounded like a loud cackle. It sounded like if there was a wicked witch down there. Clarissa obviously didn't hear it, but Skylar did and said that we should get up the basement. They got out of the basement and told their parents, to which they looked down there, but they found nothing in the basement. So, this took place around 2015 when a close friend of mine named Rachel was about in her mid to late 20s. She was with her boyfriend or fiance at the time named Calvin. Calvin and Rachel had been together for a couple of years now, and they were deciding to have a sleepover at Rachel's place. Now, Rachel owned an apartment at the time, just a small apartment. It wasn't really too big. It was big enough to have a living room, a bathroom, 2 bedrooms, one for her and one the guest room, kitchen, and that. It was a pretty small bedroom apartment, but Calvin decided to spend the night there as, Rachel decided they would spend time together after a long week of college. Calvin didn't have any problems sleeping over at Rachel's place as they were a couple and they were engaged at the time, so it was quite normal. However, though, some things started to get really weird. When Rachel was sleeping over at places, she ended up seeing and hearing things at times. She first thought that it might have been the neighbors, which in the apartment she was in, their neighbors were quite noisy. However, there were a few times where she did have to go over and tell the neighbors to be quiet, so that was that. However, when Calvin came over, they ordered pizza, and then they were watching movies, as they like to do as a couple. However, that does not end the story there. It took place about maybe around 11 o'clock at night, when Rachel was already in bed waiting for Calvin so they can both cuddle up together and fall asleep. They obviously had the TV on, but of course, Rachel waited for Calvin to show up, and as she did, she ended up hearing some noises. It sounded like something was shoveling under her bed. She honestly did not know if someone was actually in there, but she looked under with the flashlight, but couldn't see anything or anyone under the bed. She looked on one side, and the side that Calvin was going to sleep in, she looked over there, but actually found nothing. The shuffling continued again when Rachel got back up and sat on her bed. However, that's when something was beginning to really feel weird. Rachel ended up telling Calvin that something was under the bed, and at first Calvin thought that she was being paranoid. However, Rachel said she did see something or hear something under the bed. When Calvin looked, he didn't see anything. He honestly just told Rachel that maybe she was just hallucinating and probably just needs to get to sleep. Now, fast forward to about 2 a.m. when Rachel woke up for some reason. She ended up looking to see that her bedroom door was wide open. Now, the craziest thing was there was nothing at the door. There was nothing that opened the door as they closed it. However, when she looked under the bed again, she saw what appeared to be something. It looked to be what seemed to be a man, probably in his 50s, and he was under the bed. Luckily, his back was facing her, so he didn't notice she was awake. She honestly had no idea how we got into her house or apartment, so she quickly had to act fast and woke Calvin up and said that someone was under her bed. That shuffling noises might have been him maybe trying to get comfortable under there. Maybe Rachel didn't see him. But that didn't make any sense as there was no one under the bed. However, though, Rachel and Calvin get up and they do their full sweep of the place. They didn't see any signs of breaking and entering, and this honestly confused them. However, they looked under the bed again and they know for sure that there was a man under there. However, by the time they called the cops, they left the bedroom and they went over to the front of the building of the apartment. Once the police arrived and checked out the place, the man was already gone. They honestly had no idea why the man was there or how he got in. There was no way they would know that he was already in the house or whatever, as they already looked, but there was nothing. This honestly was really freaky, as they didn't find anything that could resemble someone or something breaking in. But this was when something really got messed up. Eventually, they actually found out that there was some homeless man who was going in from apartment to apartment, sneaking into people's houses. There was no absolutely reason on how that be the case, but something was definitely up, and they had no idea who that person was or if they caught the man. They never seen him again, and Rachel moved out of her apartment at least a few months later. She kind of had her paranoia in that, but she actually did not want to hear anything anymore. And when it came to sleepovers, yeah, she and Calvin moved in together eventually, but Rachel never attended a sleepover again, because she always think about this incident every time it's brought up to her. For some context, this happened to one of my friends, which we'll call him Harrison. Harrison had a sleepover with his buddy named Anthony, and he and Anthony got along very well. However, though, they were having a sleepover at Anthony's house and decided to FaceTime call their Anthony's girlfriend named Haley. Haley and Anthony have been together for at least a couple months now, and to which Harrison and Anthony decided to call her during their sleepover. Of course, Harrison arrived at Anthony's house about 2 p.m., maybe mainly because they were going to go see a movie. They went to see a movie, which I don't remember what movie they were seeing, but after the movie, they decided to call Haley, who happened to be Anthony's girlfriend. As said earlier, Anthony's girlfriend Haley was pretty much a very decent girl. Maybe not perfect, but she's definitely one of those girls that obviously were popular. Now, keep in mind that they were in sophomore year when this happened, and it was about 2014 when Anthony and Haley FaceTime chatted along with Harrison. They started chatting and asking Haley certain things. Haley was surprised about the movie they saw, and she said that she wished she would have seen the movie, but however, though, she unfortunately got grounded because she did something really messed up, which meant she wasn't allowed to go out with anybody. I can't remember what she did to get in trouble, but she did get something in trouble. However, though, part of the grounding was she couldn't be online for a week, but since it's been 2 weeks since her grounding, she was grounded for a month. She ended up getting her electronics back, but she wasn't allowed to hang out with friends for the entire month. However, this was when things got really messed up. When Harrison, along with Anthony, were joking around with Haley, they noticed something was in the background. "Is that your brother?" Haley turned around and looked, but said, "No." There appeared to be a man. He appeared to be in his late 40s or something. He was in the background and he was very dark, but Anthony and Harrison could not understand who he was, as there was no way of knowing who he really was. This man didn't look like anybody they knew, and this was starting to get really weirded out. Haley ended up screaming, and her webcam unfortunately got cut off when suddenly this man started to jump at her, probably trying to attack her. This is when Anthony called the police, and they investigated Haley's house to find that Haley was assaulted by physically and a lot more worse than anyone can imagine. Unfortunately, this man was nowhere to be found, as they investigated the area but couldn't find any traces of him. That was one sleepover that Harrison and Anthony will never forget. They still wonder if this man was still out there or if he got caught. That remains a mystery to this day. This happened to a classmate named Nathan, and this happened about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. However, Nathan was sleeping over at his friend, which we'll call him Taylor's house. Taylor and Nathan got along just fine, and since they were in college, they decided to have a sleepover at Nathan's house. As most of the time when they do sleepovers, Taylor would always come over to Nathan's. They had no problem staying over at Nathan's place, but however, Taylor's place was kind of a hard thing, as Taylor's people were very strict, mainly his parents. I don't get it why though, but that was probably because they were protective. However, it happened to be sometime in the late summer, early fall of 2000 and something. Probably 16 or something, I can't honestly remember. However, when Nathan and Taylor went to the house, they live in a pretty decent apartment area. It was decent, although the place was pretty obvious. Now, Nathan was living by himself at the time, as his job can only pay for a certain amount of money in the apartment. His roommate, however, was out doing stuff such as going to a party, which he wouldn't be back till the next morning, since he was getting drunk. It wasn't very surprising. However, when Nathan and Taylor were both playing video games on the computer, they heard a knock at the door. It sounded as if someone was there, but Nathan wasn't sure who was at the door, so he went up to go and answer. However, when he went up to answer, he ended up seeing that there was a really odd-looking man. His voice sounded really gruff, and he looked like he was about maybe 7 foot tall almost. He seemed to be maybe in his 40s, and he seemed pretty decent. However, though Nathan and Taylor weren't really sure who this guy was or why was this guy in the area. He basically said something along the lines of, "Oh, hey there, are you Nathan? I'm the landlord." That didn't really make any sense, as Nathan's landlord wasn't supposed to come till the next day for rent or something. Now, this was honestly really freaking Nathan out, as he didn't know who this man was. Sorry, Nathan does not live here, Nathan said, obviously just trying to shake it off to get the stranger out of the house. Oh, okay. Well, I must be going then. As he turned around, Nathan saw that this man had a large knife. As soon as he was gone and out of town, Nathan ended up going down and calling the security of the apartment, as well as the landlord, and asked them questions if they knew this man, because apparently he claimed that he was the landlord when that wasn't really the case. However, Nathan's landlord said that he wasn't anyone they were familiar with, so it was obvious that someone was obviously impersonating the landlord. However, they have no idea who this man was, and eventually Nathan and Taylor had never seen him since. This was the only sleepover encounter they ever had with this man, but they had no idea what would have happened if Nathan said his actual name.